Hello, and welcome to another segment of the Coatesville Area Public Library's Oral History Project. I'm talking today with Mr. Harry Martini, a longtime resident of our community and also a teacher of many years' service here in the Coatesville Area School District. Good morning, Harry. We're glad to have you with us today.
Good morning, Kirk. How are you?
Fine. Harry, I understand you were born in Honeybrook some time ago. I won't give away your age unless you care to.
Well, I was born near Honeybrook.
Near Honeybrook?
And I don't mind telling you, 1932.
1932.
Yeah, that was a good year.
I'm sure it was. Harry, tell us what life was like growing up in the area.
Well, I grew up on a farm, mostly first several years, which I don't remember. And then we moved into town, Honeybrook, and I spent most of my summers on a farm. 23 acres, believe it or not. Self-sufficient. We had calves for milk. We raised 2 hogs, which we slaughtered. And the only thing we bought really was beef and necessities like that. You had your chicken flock, fruit trees, and a truck patch for your vegetables and that sort of thing. So basically self-sufficient. Only cash income was from tobacco, ours.
Yes.
And that might have netted us $300 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I would say about 300. I still have some of my grandfather's income deposits from his tobacco sale, which of course occurred in the spring, after it had been all processed and what have you. It's generally sold in February.
And how much acreage did you think you have in tobacco?
Well, probably 2 acres, 3 acres max.
To net you 300 a year?
Yeah.
Big operation.
Big time. Agribusiness.
Agribusiness.
Big time. I went to school in Honeybrook, which is now part of Twin Valley. I graduated Honeybrook in '50, and shortly after that, it became part of Twin Valley. And I don't know if there's any connection there or not.
What was transportation like back then?
Shoe Leather Express.
Yes?
Yeah, we walked to school. There was no such thing as a bus. Now, some of the township kids out there, I think they had one bus, which was, by the way, the beginning of the Kraft Bus Company. That's where he started.
So that would have been about what year, do you think?
Oh, late 30s. Late 30s. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary about 50 years ago. So let's take 55 and go back. You're in that time frame. 23 in my graduating class.
Wow.
And I think I was last. But I can always say I graduated in the top 25 of my class.
Yes, you can.
I can remember as a kid during the war. That's World War II.
Yes.
In case you don't remember. And we on Saturdays, the big thing of the day, we'd ride the bus. Probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, we'd get the bus in Honeybrook and ride to Coatesville. And we'd make a day of it. We'd get back about 6 at night, or at least get on the bus at 6 at night. See, it was gas rationing.
Yes.
See, everything went by bus or Shoe Leather Express. And we'd come into Coatesville every 2 weeks. And my mother would bring us. And we'd shop, have lunch, and then afternoon, Coatesville at that time had 2 theaters.
Yes.
And we'd go to one and finish there and go to the other one, but that was time to get the bus to go back home.
Can you remember where they were?
On Main Street there, one was in the auditorium, the YMCA building, Audi, which is now the Senior Towers.
Yes.
And the other one was down on the south side, Lincoln Highway. I'm not sure what building that would be now. In 1998, I can't remember what building that would be.
Between 1st and 2nd Avenue?
Yes, yeah. And the restaurant we generally ate at was on the corner there between 1st and 2nd, on the corner of Main and 2nd, where that big new bank building is now.
Yes, there was a restaurant there.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was called?
I can't remember what it was called. I remember they had a lunch counter, and then they had some seating chairs. And the lady who operated that finally worked in the Coatesville area school system in one of the cafeterias.
What did lunch cost then?
Oh, probably 35 cents.
Yeah? What can you get for 35 cents?
A wish. No, I mean, hamburgers back then were 15 cents. Coke was a nickel. I can remember eating in Honeybrook a hot roast beef or a hot chicken sandwich with mashed potatoes, 35 cents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can remember that. I mentioned my mother. Let me tell you about my dad.
Yes?
He worked for an auto company in Honeybrook, and during the Depression, right, he had 3 children, was buying a house which cost $300. Wasn't much of a house for $300. He worked as an auto repairman, and he worked Monday through Saturday from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. And every third Sunday, he had to work from noon till 5. He made $7.35 a week.
Oh.
$7.05
$5 a week.
Yeah.
So you left home at what age, Harry?
18.
18.
Went to service.
And
In 1950, I graduated. I worked as a retail salesman of appliances for B. Roy Ritmer out of New Holland. Starting in February, I had a little shop in Honeybrook, believe it or not, in what they call the POS of A building, which is in the middle of town there. And I sold General Electric appliances. The big seller was television, because that was 1950. You know, that was the big novelty.
Yes.
And I did that until December of 50. Graduated in June, high school. Did that until 50, December. Then I went into service, the Air Force. I spent almost 4 years in the Air Force. And I was in Greenland, and I was working in basically management analysis. My classification was clerk typist, but I was basically in management analysis. And there were 4 folks in the office. The officer in charge, who had a bachelor's and master's in business administration. The section chief was a master's sergeant who had a master's and bachelor's in education, physical education. And we kept the commander's notebook, which was graphic. Of course, back then it was all done by hand. And the draftsman was a fellow who had a bachelor's and master's in fine arts. And I was a force person, and I was the grunt. I was doing all the work. I was even ghostwriting a lot of stuff. And it dawned on me that, hey, wait a minute. If it takes college, then I better think about it. I left Greenland in August of 54, and the day before I left, I got an acceptance letter for Penn State to start. This was late August, to start in September. So I went there for 4 years.
You became a Nittany Lion, huh?
I Nittany Lion. Yeah.
So you came out of college then prepared to do what?
Well, teach. I was originally a pre-law major, and I planned to follow that up until by the end of my sophomore year. I took a geography course. I loved it. I still remember the prof. And I thought, I got to find out more about this. So the last 2 years, I concentrated on geography and education. And I ended up in teaching. And in Coatesville, which was irony. I was walking through the campus, and the Student Union building had a restaurant in the bottom of it. And I walked by, and I saw my old high school principal in Honeybrook, Dr. Robert E. Johns, eating. I hadn't seen him for years. And I went in and introduced myself and asked him what he was doing. And he said, well, I'm the superintendent in the Brandywine Area School District. I said, you are? Yeah. I said, well, I'm majoring in education now. He said, well, stop in and see me. And he was in the Callan Elementary School in Thorndale. So I stopped down and saw him, and met with he and Dale Smith, who later was principal at North Brandywine, Kings Highway, and what have you, and got a job.
Sounds like it was destined to be.
Well, either that or I was a lucky guy to be walking past that student union building on that day at that time.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes. Quite a stroke of luck.
Yeah, a lot of luck.
But
Well, the older you get, the more things I think are providential than luck or circumstance. Just too many things happen that you can't explain.
Yes. So you started teaching here in Coatesville in what year?
58, September of 58. Yeah, I started on my master's. I graduated January 58 from Penn State, started on my master's, and worked through the summer, came down here and started teaching. Then I went back and finished in the summer of 59. But, yeah, North Brandywine, and brand new building, north and south were brand new buildings at the time. And as Earl Smith says, we opened that building at North Brandywine and South Brandywine with 1 12-seat in each building. That's how they weren't that nearly done yet.
Yes.
Earl says they had to fly those things in from Milwaukee.
Oh, boy.
Why didn't they go down to the hardware and buy one? I can't understand that one, but yeah, that was one of Earl Smith's real stories. Yeah, we opened in 59, tremendous building, and both north and south were tremendous buildings, and we opened in September 59, and great schools building, great staff, good kids, and that was a good place to start teaching.
Yes. And it was a teaching career that went on for 31 years.
31 years, yeah.
Tell me, Harry, what major differences do you see between the first classes that you taught and the last classes? How did the attitudes of the students change over the years, if any?
All right, talking about students. The students changed because they became more independent, more questioning, more free-spirited, less dependent upon parents, teachers, and that sort of thing. But that was a sign of the times, the evolution that had happened in the 60s in part. But there was a big difference. I remember when I first started teaching, we'd take a busload of kids on a 3-day trip to Indiana, PA, to a geography conference. I taught geography most of it, and wouldn't think a thing about it. When I ended teaching, I wouldn't even give that a second thought for a $50 million lottery at risk. I mean, that kind of a change, because there are too many risks. We became very, very litigious as a society, and you didn't take chances. That was the big difference that I noticed.
How about clothing styles? I'm
Change.
sure there must have been a change. I'm sure there was a relaxation of dress codes in our school district over those 30 years.
There was a difference in dress code, but I must say that I never taught a day in my life without a tie, shirt tie. Although I could have at the end. Yeah, that kind of a difference. And I always I'm old-fashioned a lot of ways. I always maintain then and do now that the way you dress often will influence the way you behave. And I still feel that. The part of the powerful argument today for uniforms, the fact that it would help discipline, identity, and so on down the line, I don't particularly agree with that. I think everyone deserves a little bit of individuality, but the dress code has changed dramatically, no question about it.
After your teaching career, you became a judge here in the area. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, in 1986, I had, in 1982, I had thyroid cancer, and I lost my parathyroid, and I was very, very sick, and was for a number of years. And then in 1986, we learned very accidentally that I had leukemia. And my wife and I it was in the summer, and my wife and I were sharing some care and share time. And began to think that, hey, maybe I won't be able to work much longer. What do I want to do? And my wife said to me, is there anything that you wish you would have done that you didn't? I said, yeah. I said, I kind of wish that maybe I would have had a chance to do something with law, because I was always interested in it. I was a pre-law major when I started at Penn State. And she said, well, why don't you do something about it? And it was unique for her to say that. And it's something that I never thought about. And so I thought about it. And that fall, I enrolled at Penn State again. After having graduated 58, 59, I enrolled again in a paralegal program. I thought, well, maybe I can do something with that when I'm finished teaching. That was in '86. I finished that in '89, and in the fall of '88, I began thinking, hey, I could be a district justice. I think I can do that. So I decided to run in the spring of '89, was successful, won both primaries. Now, in the judicial elections in Pennsylvania, you can file in both major parties, no matter what you're registered as.
Cross-filing.
Yeah, and I did that, and won both primaries, which means that I was the only name on the ballot for November. The fellow that I had beaten in the primaries, who had been a district justice in Downingtown for a long while, unfortunately passed away in August. And they asked me in late September, I think, would I want to go in early? They could get me appointed by the governor. I said, no, not until after the election, because you never know what's happened. So the day after the election was when I was installed as district justice on appointment. Then that January, I completed a 6-year term, which ended in '95. I got involved with that, to answer your question, because of prodding by my wife and the interest I had in that for a long, lifelong interest.
Well, a tip of the hat to Virginia then for her encouragements.
She deserves a lot of tips.
I'm sure she does.
She's a wonderful, wonderful wife, and 110% of support in anything I wanted to do. When I was in teaching, which I had a chance to do a lot of weird things, strange things. And then finally in the judiciary.
Are there any particular cases that you found amusing?
Well,
I realize you can't divulge any names or anything, but perhaps certain circumstances.
No, I had one that made the major net news outlets. It was, and the school students would be interested in this. A lady who had asked a fellow to take her to a prom, and he said, "Oh, sure." So she got the gown, the corsage, everything. Day prom comes, he doesn't show up.
Uh-oh.
He's gone to a rock concert someplace. So she sued him. And her mother was very, very outspoken about this thing, and it made the major networks tell her. She finally ended up on To Tell the Truth. As a consent, and by the way, one there too. that was an interesting one. I had on the other end of the scale, I had the fellow who murdered a grandmother in a parking lot in Westchester, in a shopping center. Loaded the body in the trunk of a car, decomposed the body in one of the rural townships of Coatesville, and I had his arraignment. That's where he was just a young fellow, 18, I think, 19 years old. And I did the arraignment on him, which was, to set bail. Of course, on the murder charge, there is no bail.
Right.
I remember that case because he sat there and you would have thought he was waiting on somebody to serve him in a restaurant or something. Just totally non-committal any way, shape, or form. I don't know whether he was totally bewildered by the judicial process at that point, or he was so callous. But I remember that case. Third case I remember was a case that started a preliminary hearing. That's where you determine whether or not there's enough merit to hold the case for court or not.
Yes.
Started 11 o'clock in the morning and ended at 1 o'clock the next morning. And I got kidded about that one because a lot of folks told me that trials don't last that long. But there were no breaks or anything. But I had a little gimmick going. We would take a little comfort recess every now and then, and I would sneak back in my chambers and get a little pack of crackers. These lawyers, all these hotshot lawyers, are sneaking nowhere and getting nothing.
Yeah. Kind of makes them come right to the point that way, doesn't it?
That's how you save a lot of hocus pocus.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 3 cases that I remember.
Yes. Harry, eventually you became director of the Coatesville Public Library. And that was a surprise, I think, to you, that opportunity would come along. How did that happen?
Well, that's why I said earlier, I think a lot of things are more providential than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd left the court in December 95, and on January 2nd, 96, Milt Allen called me, who was director of the board, and said he wanted to talk to me about Coatesville Library. It was nice of Milt to give me New Year's Day off.
Yeah.
I appreciate having that off. So I went to talk with Milt, and we talked quite a long while, and he wanted me to come down and see what could happen in the library. And I'd already made a commitment to do some things that was going to take me till March, and I really didn't want to back out of that. So I think it was March the 23rd of '96, I finally agreed to go down there and work, and I'd stayed there for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous experience. Coatesville Public Library is a tremendous resource, and it's a resource that some folks in town it's the only kind of resource that they would ever have the opportunity to use because of transportation and that kind of stuff. And it was an accident or whatever.
And I would also interject, too, at this point, Harry, that the Coatesville Public Library is probably a resource that many people don't realize how wonderful a resource it is.
It's the best kept secret, and one of my goals when I was there was to have something in the newspapers at least twice a month. And I think we did that every month except maybe 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the newspaper's fault, not ours.
Yes. But as a director of the public library, that brought you into downtown Coatesville on a regular basis.
Every day.
And right. And what are your impressions of Coatesville at that time compared to your Saturday forays from Honeybrook when you came into Coatesville as a child?
Big difference. Big difference. Number one, there were no theaters in 1996
Yes.
through '98. There were some nice eateries still today that I would patronize.
Mm-hmm.
You no longer have the Y, and that was a very important social center of town. Big changes, both in the physical quality of the buildings and the nature of the businesses. A big change. Yeah. Now,
let's back up for a second. You said the Y was a very active social center. Tell us what kinds of activities were going on there.
well, they had the movies, the movie theater, the auditorium theater was there, first run movies, and then on Sundays they had the Armchair Travel Series, and oh my, I can't think of the fellow who was that. Maybe you can. Every Sunday you could go down there, and there would be a film and a lecture on someone who'd done some traveling. And these were generally professionals who did this, professional travelers who shared their experiences with people. Next to the Y, you had the Coatesville 4 Inn, fine restaurant, fine hotel. The Y had a bowling alley, which was jam-packed with people
Yes.
all the time.
I remember it well. In fact, I remember going with my father every Friday evening as a teenager because that was league night at the Y Bowling Alley.
The firehouses had activities going. You had a number of fraternal organizations. You had a Moose Club, you had an Elks Club, the Legion and the BFW were active then. And it was something to do in Coatesville back then. Those things are missing today.
Yes.
Those things are missing today.
Sad to say, but slow but sure they're coming back.
Well, it also leaves a challenge to the people in Coatesville.
Yes, it does.
And that's good. You know, it's something to work at, something to work for. So that's the plus.
Yes. So what are you up to these days, Harry?
Well, my good wife and I traveling. We spent May in Europe, London, Paris, Geneva,
The grand tour.
Zermatt, St. Moritz, Venice, Rome, Florence, Siena, San Gimignano, if I'm saying it right. Enjoyed that. Spending a lot of time with the grandchildren. We have a new grandson who'll be a year old in a month, and a Thanksgiving kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We spend time at the shore. This spring we had everyone there, all children and grandchildren. And I spend a lot of time in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
We have a place in the mountains, and I try to spend as many moments there as I can. Been reading a lot. And when I get time, and I have to be more disciplined about this, trying to learn to play a keyboard.
There you go.
Yeah. Not very good. I got grandchildren that can be punch at it better than I. But I'm going to spend a lot of time this winter working with it, I think.
Well, good. I encourage you to do that.
Well, it's a nice piece of equipment. And it's a shame that I don't do more with it.
Well, Harry, I want to thank you for participating in our oral history project. I know you were one of the individuals who was very key in getting this project underway. Are there any particulars you want to share with us about the project itself?
Just I hope it works.
Yes, well, I'm sure it
I
will.
hope it. Well, Lou Beccaria gets some credit for it. Just a number of pieces fell in line. By the way, the library's role in this thing, I hope, is that they will be the repository where these can be used. I understand 2 copies are going to be made. One will circulate, and one will be a master copy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's I think it demonstrates the kind of thing we can be doing, because here we have a school, a public library, and folks in the community cooperating in a project, and that's neat.
Yes.
That's the way it should be.
It's a wonderful hands-on project.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again
You're welcome.
for being a part of our project.
Thank you.